Hello everyone, welcome to our presentation. Today we are going to make a strategy analysis of Ryanair. And now we're going to start with some basic information about the airline. Ryanair was founded by Tony Ryan in the year 1985. Initially, he intended to offer an alternative to the state-owned monopoly airline called Aer Lingus between the countries Ireland and the UK. Based on the cost leadership strategy of the American Southwest Airlines, Ryanair was the first airline introducing the budget airline model in Europe. The mission of Ryanair is to offer low fares that generate increased passenger traffic while maintaining a continuous focus on cost commitment and operating efficiencies. Ryanair has 33 bases, flies on 850 routes, has 7,000 employees and over 67 million passengers a year. They operate across 26 countries and their fleet consists of 199 Boeings. First of all, we performed a SWOT analysis to get a general overview of the external and internal environment. The strengths include low operating costs due to fast turnaround times, point-to-point transfer, and low airport costs. Therefore, they can offer low fares which stimulate the demand. Another strength are ancillary revenues, which make up 25% of Ryanair's total operating revenues. They also have a good safety record and a modern internet site. Booking and check-in eliminates the need of travel agents. The aircraft fleet consists of only Boeing aircrafts. This unified fleet saves maintenance and training costs. Their high service performance in terms of punctuality and loss of luggage is another strength. Some of the weaknesses, however, might be that Ryanair has a bad brand perception. In 2015, Ryanair was ranked 155 out of 160 in the Corporate Empathy Index. One of the major reasons is probably that they charge extra for many services that other airlines provide for free. Their earnings are seasonal. They increase their capacities in the summertime and decrease them in winter. But the problem is that fixed costs stay the same and employees usually want year-round employment. They have bad labor relations, as they refuse to recognize unions and allegedly provide poor working conditions. And they are also involved in many legal proceedings. They still fly to many secondary airports at inconvenient times, which is a weakness, but necessary to be able to offer such low fares. The opportunities are to improve customer service, to ultimately get rid of their bad reputation. They could also use their CEO, Michael O'Leary, as a marketing tool, who is already dressed up as St. Patrick and as the Pope to promote ticket offers. To gain even more market share in the LCC market is a good opportunity and maybe even introduce transatlantic flights. The main threats are that they are dependent on the oil market, since fuel costs have a high fluctuation rate, and they are also dependent on the economic cycle. Unforeseen events like accidents are always a threat in the airline industry. There is also an increase of low-fare competition in the EU, and the EU might introduce new regulations, for example new taxes, which can become a threat for Ryanair. Afterwards, we performed the passenger analysis to get a better understanding about the external environment. The political environment strongly influences the airline, as Ryanair maintains large bases in the UK. Therefore, unfavourable Brexit outcomes could negatively influence the airline and its access to the UK market. Additionally, if the passengers' tax increases to a higher rate through the existing low rate, it will have a negative impact on the sales of tickets. This could reduce the profit of Ryanair. For economic factors, there is the unstable fuel price that could affect the company's operating costs. The rise in fuel prices means that operating costs would increase and the growth and profitability of the airline would be affected. An increase in the price of fuel would affect Ryanair badly, as the airline is successful due to its low prices. Social factors link with political and economic factors in terms of stable development that would allow a more sustainable lifestyle. The enlargement of the EU, for instance, has increased the number of people moving from one region to another to work or for vacation. The EU expansion has affected Ryanair by providing the base to attract a wide demographic of prospects. The effect of this capacity on Ryanair is that it could increase their operating market, segmentation, and productivity. Also, the company low-fare strategy means that they can fly frequently, because there is demand. Technology expansion has enabled the company to change their market focus from third-party agents to online bookings. Moreover, the availability of satellite television and internet service on flights for free increased Ryanair's revenue. The ecological environment plays an important role as well. There are new laws that say that the airline industry has to be more environmentally friendly. Hence, the company has to decrease carbon emissions and make the industry less harmful to the environment in order to comply with EU regulations. In the case of Ryanair, the legal environment is consistently changing. The whole industry has very strict control laws. Therefore, Ryanair has to constantly adapt to new changes in law, for example, not allowing the liquid on board. In addition to that, we also conducted a Porter's 5 forces analysis. Porter's 5 forces help to identify the attractiveness of an industry in terms of 5 competitive forces. In Ryanair's case, it determines if the European budget airline industry is an attractive one. Threat of new entrants. The low fares industry, especially with established leading players as Ryanair, is really hard to enter. The entrants need high capital requirements in order to generate high economies of scale to compete in the European market. Besides, access to distribution channels is required. Bargaining power of buyers. Customers have a high bargaining power because switching to another airline, such as, for example, EasyJet or Virgin Express, is easy and there is no additional expense required. In particular, when following the strategy of low-cost partnership leadership, as Ryanair does, each customer becomes important. However, an increasing problem is that more and more competitors start to offer cheap prices as well. Threat of substitutes. A service that creates equivalent value to the customers as the airline industry does is the railway networks, sea transports and car rental firms. In this context, the only significant threat is the train service, because the other options are too expensive. Even though Europe has a good train network, like EU Rail, the disadvantage of trains is the travel time. It takes much longer to reach a destination by train than by plane, which results in higher opportunity and transaction costs. Bargaining power of suppliers. The bargaining power of suppliers is high, as there are only 2 major manufacturers, Boeing and Airbus, competing in the aircraft industry. Supplier switching costs are high, as the pilot will need to be retrained, and high capital investments must be made. In this regard, Ryanair's main supplier has traditionally been Boeing. However, Ryanair can change his suppliers because its healthy cash flow and due to the fact that the company has already tried to purchase Airbus aircraft after the purchase of 200 jets from Boeing got cancelled. Extent of rivalry between existing competitors. The number of competitors there are trying to imitate Ryanair's cost leadership is increasing. As the market share of the budget airline is only 30% of the whole airline industry, the market has the potential to grow. In fact, this might be the problem for Ryanair and its expansion strategy. Supplementary to the 5 forces analysis, we elaborated on Porter's genetic strategies. Generally defined, a business following the strategy of cost leadership organizes and manages its value-adding activities in a way to be the lowest cost producer of a product within an industry. Regarding Ryanair, this strategy is based on the concept of a low-budget airline that is value-adding and competes against its competitors with the lowest costs. In this context, Ryanair has been able to become a popular airline among European citizens as it fulfills the need of many European business travelers to only get from point A to point B. However, Ryanair's cost leadership strategy is only advantageous as long as industry rivals cannot find ways to lower their cost structures too. Theoretically speaking, it would not be very difficult for competitors to imitate Ryanair's methods exactly and use them against the company. As already mentioned when elaborating on Porter's 5 forces, this is already happening with the introduction of airlines such as EasyJet or Virgin Express. Ryanair, however, does have the advantage over these newer entrants of already having exploited the experience curve and accumulated skills and knowledge which these competitors are not yet to acquire. Another danger of the myopic view to maintain their cost leader position is that Ryanair maybe could make a decision which lowers costs but at the same time negatively influences the demand for their flights. An example for that would be when the management decided to charge handicapped passengers for wheelchair usage. Due to this immoral action, guests waived further flights with Ryanair until the company finally abolished this levy. Concluding, Ryanair's cost strategy enables the company to be the leader in the low-budget airline segment. In this regard, it is important not only to focus on the goal of cost reduction, but also to act in a customer-friendly and moral manner. In addition to that, and based on their strategy, Ryanair is currently able to operate successfully, but in the long term there is always the risk of losing out due to competitors' imitation of the company's strategy. Consequently, in order to be successful in the long run, Ryanair must not rest on its knowledge lead, but should closely monitor its competitors and adapt strategy decisions accordingly. Thank you for your attention.